Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Weekend 3-Pack. This time we're actually doing a 9-pack because I've missed a couple of weeks and I apologize for that. I'm going to try to do this actually bi-weekly now that I think about it. I might do a 6-pack. I think that is the next evolution of this entire thing. But what the Weekend 3-pack or 6-pack or whatever it is, what this is all about is I'm actually talking about movies that I've seen over the weekend, obviously these last 3 weekends, that I've seen for the first time ever. This is the first time I've seen these movies, and I want to give you my thoughts on each of them. So the first movie I want to talk about is Ain't Them Body Saints, directed by David Lowery, starring Rooney Mara, and you have Casey Affleck in here as well, and Ben Foster, who is a fantastic role in this as well. This movie is a kind of a modern Western in the Hell or High Water sense. You see a lot of fantastic angles. David Lowery is an amazing director. I really love Pete's Dragon, and Ghost Story was my favorite movie from last year. So it was really interesting to see Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck kind of return, even though I know that this is the movie that they were in before they made Ghost Story. I really love this movie. I highly recommend checking this out. It's kind of a romantic Western in a odd kind of way. It's a very like Bonnie and Clyde-esque kind of thing, but I'm not going to give too much away from it, but I highly recommend checking out Ain't Them Body Saints. It's a gorgeous movie. The acting is well done. The cinematography is just phenomenal, and it's a great film. Alright, the second movie, we're going to switch up gears and go to New Zealand, to Boy. This is Taika Waititi's, one of his first films. I was expecting kind of more of a lighthearted, kind of crazy adventure like Hunt for the Wilder People, because that's more of one of his New Zealand movies, or What We Do in the Shadows. But Boy is actually a little bit more serious in tonal nature than the other films. It definitely has a lot of comedic elements. In fact, this is more of a comedy than anything, but it has some family dynamics in it as well that makes it a little bit dramatic and also intense at the same time, of this kid who's more or less just trying to figure out his life and his dad and all the people around him as well. The film that I highly recommend, check out Boy for sure. Alright, we're going to go from New Zealand to France now, to a movie called The Class. And in fact, this has been sitting on my shelf for quite some time. I really have not had the urge to watch it, but this French film is more or less a film about the inner city of France. I don't exactly know where. I want to say, yeah, it's in Paris. It's a middle school, and these are kids who are not so well off. A lot of them are troubled in these neighborhoods, and it's the struggles of the kids and the teacher, and this teacher is a French teacher in the middle of the school. He's French himself, but it's more or less like, you know, teaching English in America, even though English is not really about language, English language and how to speak. I digress. I'm going to get too caught up in the details there. The Class is a really great movie of showing you that dynamic between the teacher and the student and the mistakes that each of them make, and a lot of these parallels had things to do with my own life. As a teacher myself, I've had a couple of instances where it's very relatable to this movie, and so I thought this movie was really, really well done. If you like subtitles, definitely check this movie out. I think this is a really great movie to watch. Alright, next we're going to switch gears to a movie for the weekend after that started it all off, and this movie is incredibly interesting and is a fantastic sci-fi film. This is Resolution. This is directed by Moorhead, and I can't think of their names. Why can't I think of their names? I've just been watching Justin Benson and Aaron Scott Moorhead. So these two are directors. They are also actors, and they are also screenwriters, and they pretty much do everything in this movie. Cinematography and everything like that. But Resolution is about two friends in the middle of, I think, New Mexico. I want to say he's trying to help him go through rehab. His other friend is on meth and all the time, and so he finds him in this pretty much abandoned house and locks him to it, and a lot of weird shit goes down. And I really don't want to explain it because it's kind of a movie to just let it unfold. But as you can see right here, puts Cabin in the Woods to shame. So if that tells you anything, there's a lot of crazy sci-fi things going on as well currently while they're trying to deal with their own past drama, and their current drama with a lot of the things going on in the current situation where they're in the middle of nowhere, trying to drag him to either rehab or save him. So Resolution, I definitely highly recommend checking out. The next movie I saw was a really great film with James Gandolfini and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. You know her from Seinfeld. And Enough Said is directed by Nicole Holofcener. I cannot talk. Holofcener. I thought this was a really delightful film about a complicated relationship of two older people who have pasts, they have kids in their past, and they've had marriages in their past, and they meet together, and it's really awkward, and they're not really attracted to each other at first, but then it unfolds from there, and it gets a little bit more complicated. It's really one of those nice romantic films. It's one of those indie romantic films that I didn't really know much about, but it came across my my door somehow, and I found it, and I really, really loved it, and really enjoyed it. It's hard to watch sometimes, but it's also really a delight to watch as well. I highly recommend checking out Enough Said. All right, the third movie in the 3-pack for this weekend I watched was Matchstick Men, directed by Ridley Scott, actually, which is really weird because watching the movie, it didn't really make me think of a Ridley Scott film, but Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell play in this movie. Nicolas Cage is just this crazy guy. They're con artists. They're conning a lot of people over the phone and in person. And Alison Lohman, who plays this kid, who shows up to Nicolas Cage saying that she's his daughter, contacts him. Nicolas Cage is already crazy. It's ironic because he's on a lot of pills in this movie, and you see him kind of unfold with that, but he's naturally like that, so it's a really great film for that reason. And it's a crazy movie. This has been on my shelf for quite some time. I thought this movie was really, really well made. Really fun at the same time. I don't know if I'm going to revisit it anytime soon, but I really loved it. It's pretty great, and highly recommend checking out Matchstick Men. So let's move on to the next 3 films that I've recently watched. And this is that past current weekend that I watched them. The first one being The Guest. This is, I guess, from the creators of You're Next. This is Dan Stevens. He plays this guy who returns home from Afghanistan and returns home to this family who says he's his friend. He was in the same unit as this one guy who died, and is there to grieve the family a little bit and just be there around. And what unfolds from there is you start seeing this guy unhinge on things, and things kind of go awry, and things aren't really all there or natural. And it's really crazy, and a lot of the things that go on are just like, oh, okay, and then shit hits the fan very, very fast, especially halfway through the film. And yeah, I highly recommend checking out The Guest if you haven't seen it. It's a really great kind of horror film. It's like more of a, I don't really know, a suspenseful horror film. Things are going on, crazy things. So yeah, check out The Guest. Next on this list is The Warriors. I have finally seen this movie. I understand where the Warriors are. I was asking for them to come out to play. I finally understand it now. I like this movie quite a bit. It came out in 1979, and you can tell it came out in the 70s, kind of near that cusp from the 70s and the 80s, and I really loved it. I actually loved the dialogue in it. Yeah, there's some problematic scenes maybe in the current era of today, but it really showed, I guess, that culture from that time period. And I don't know if that was actually, those gangs are actually like existing, but there was so many gangs in this movie, and it's so crazy, and it was so over the top, but it was so much fun. I liked it a lot. It's the Warriors get blamed for this murder, and pretty much every gang in the city is after them, and they have to get to their home turf. And that's pretty much the premise of the movie. I highly recommend checking out The Warriors. I'm glad I finally saw it. And last but not least is another Moorhead and Benson film, Spring. This movie is not connected to Resolution, however The Endless is, which I'll talk about maybe sometime later. I watched The Endless recently as well. But Spring is a fantastic movie where it is this American who is visiting Italy, and he falls in love with this woman, and things are not as they seem, and I really don't want to get too much into it, but think of a hybrid of Richard Linklater and H.P. Lovecraft. A lot of the dialogue is much Linklater-esque, so it's really, really intriguing, and you just keep watching the entire time, and then just kind of gets in the horror genre, as you can see with H.P. Lovecraft. It's really great. I highly recommend it. Moorhead and Benson are fantastic writers. Everything that they've made has been super interesting, and I am really looking forward to watching more of their stuff. So this is the end of the weekend 3-pack, aka weekend 6-pack, aka the weekend 9-pack for this particular episode. So I hope to be doing this every 2 weeks now. I'll be trying to do a 6-pack. So these are films that I have not seen over the weekends. These are films that I have not seen for the first time, and I want to talk a little bit about them and recommend them. So I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you think of any of these movies? Were these good recommendations? I want to hear your thoughts. Like this video, don't forget to share this video, also subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.